There's been a lot of takes about the future of the Xbox or the Xbox brand over the last week or so with the recent price increase of Game Pass to $30 for the premium subscription model. And look, I don't really want to sugarcoat this particular video, but I just want to say that I'm very, very sad. As someone who's been a big fan of the Xbox since the very beginning, I've always been a big fan of the Xbox. Even when things weren't going their way, I always kind of gave them a chance, to basically right the ship, if you will. And I think now with what we've been seeing, not only with the Game Pass increase, but also just a systematic, list of changes and list of things that I've seen on the Xbox brand itself over the last 18 months, 2 years, it's more like a death by 1,000 cuts, if you will, where these small but very impactful decisions are really hurting their brand to the point where I think the damage that they're doing, you could say, is almost irreparable. I want to talk about the Game Pass increase for just a few minutes, but I don't want to make it the focal point of this video because, like I said, there are many other things that have happened that we just have to consider as well when we look at how Xbox is going right now, because you have to look at the collective of all the different decisions that have been made and all the things that you're starting to see when you turn on your Xbox these days. But look, the Game Pass thing, it's a service that does have some good value. There's no question about it, but there's really not enough meat on the bone for me to continue to use Game Pass. So I ended up canceling it quite a while ago. And now with the price increase to $30, Xbox has tried to offset that by offering up, a big back catalog of Ubisoft titles and some EA titles. But ultimately, at the end of the day, these are just filler titles. They don't really have any value. Even though Xbox sees the value in bringing a back catalog of Assassin's Creed games, the average person that has Game Pass doesn't see the value of that. And I think that's why a lot of people have decided to cancel their Game Pass subscription because, $20, $15, $20, you could say, okay, that's expensive, but I can live with that. That's not a bad deal. If I'm getting Call of Duty and I'm getting Doom the Dark Ages and I'm getting Fable and I'm getting Starfield and I'm getting, a sprinkle of really awesome indie titles throughout the year, yeah, that's not a bad deal at all. I'll continue to, support that. But at $30, that is a different conversation. All of a sudden, you're eating into, a family's budget at that point. So what that means is you're going to have to pay $360 a year for Game Pass Ultimate. And I think that is the reason why a lot of people have decided that maybe it's time to step away. And I don't blame them. And I think anyone that is outspoken about canceling Game Pass or outspoken about their unhappiness or their disgust with the Game Pass price increase should be heard. It's a valid concern that people have. The increased price is a significant one. It's not, $5 a month. It's 50% a month. And that is a lot more than I think a lot of people were expecting. But like I said, it's not just about Game Pass. And I think, we have to kind of review the year or the last 12 to 18 months that Xbox has had. And there's been some wins for sure, but there's been mostly disappointments and really just bad business decisions that have been made. Now, you could argue, these decisions weren't done by the heads of Xbox, Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond, for example, but it's irrelevant because at the end of the day, it kind of stops with them. You could say that these decisions were made above Phil and Sarah, but this is why CEOs make the big dollars, because they have to make the hard decisions. And they also have to be the ones to own those decisions when they make them. Now, of course, there's going to be shareholders, there's going to be people above the CEOs that are really pulling the strings. But at the end of the day, those decisions are made by him. When it comes to Xbox, like I said, it's not just about Game Pass that has really kind of hurt their brand. We're just seeing these promotional advertisements on an Xbox, a console, a game console. Now, I think there's a place for those to exist somewhere. Like maybe if you go into, the Microsoft Store, I can definitely see a place for that. But when you turn on your system and you get this full page ad, I think that's quite egregious. And of course, there's also been 2 price increases this year alone. Now, the Xbox Series X, the high-end version of that costs $800. And all of a sudden, I'm thinking that I'm going to hold on to my Xbox Series X for a long time now, because this system somehow has increased in value instead of depreciated, which that's unheard of. Now, again, this is not necessarily an Xbox only problem, but the fact that the system has seen 2 price increases in the last 12 months alone, coupled with a Game Pass price increase, is very, very significant. And it can't be something that you can just hand wave and say, well, this is just the nature of, the world that we live in these days. Video games and playing games is becoming out of reach for many people. And ultimately, it's not a good thing, The other thing that I'm seeing is Xbox's push towards PC and handhelds. Now, again, this is not necessarily a bad thing, but we have seen the Xbox ROG Ally X, the pricing at $1,000. Again, it is just far out of reach of the average person. Xbox did kind of proudly announce that their pre-orders had sold out on their store, but this is just marketing fluff at the end of the day. So if you want to see a no BS, no nonsense review of this without any sugarcoating, without me being, wowed by the company and the brand, check out my channel. I'll definitely have more to share on that, because I do want to cover all aspects of the handheld, including emulation, right? I mean, that's an area that I want to really kind of focus on, playing Xbox 360 games and OG Xbox games, and of course PlayStation 3 games. I think there's a very compelling use case, for those types of things on the LAX. But at $1,000, a lot of people are saying it's dead on arrival. And look, it's hard to argue with that at this point. I don't think it's going to really change much in terms of the landscape, but I'm hopeful that the hardware underneath the hood, if you will kind of stack up to the $1,000 that you're supposed to be, you're being charged for this product. The other thing is Xbox's kind of attempt at $80 games. They priced The Outer Worlds at $80, but then they kind of walked it back. And I think this is really just some optics at the end of the day. Xbox definitely wants to charge us $80 for games, and they will. And I think they realize that The Outer Worlds 2 was probably not the game, to start that with, or start that from, but they are going to charge us $80 for games. I think it's inevitable, and we're going to start to see that. Now, of course, there's also been some massive layoffs this year that have affected all aspects of the Xbox brand. We've seen game cancellations. We've seen partial studios shut down. We've seen other studios kind of get restructured into working with other studios to get their games finished. But we've also seen these massive layoffs. And let me tell you, when these layoffs occur, even though Xbox wants you to believe that everything is going really well and they're firing on all cylinders, that's not the case at all. When these things happen, it really does hurt the morale of the company. Right now, it just seems like Xbox is just another business unit in Microsoft. And the mandate from, Satya is make as much money, generate as much profit as possible. And it doesn't matter if your customers are loyal or they're not. It's really about just extracting as much as you can out of every person that is invested in the Xbox brand. And I'm sorry, Xbox, but that's not the Xbox that I remember, that I know. And ultimately, it's about raising per customer spending, getting that cost up, fleecing them with Game Pass price increases, the price of new hardware, PC handhelds that cost $1,000. And ultimately, I think we're going to start to see, ads running on cloud services. Games are starting to increase in price. We're going to hit that $80 mark for as well. And look, ultimately, every company out there that is successful in business wants to make as much money as possible and be profitable. And Xbox obviously, is trying to do the same thing. But there is a right way and a really kind of catastrophic way of doing things. And right now, this process, of Xbox really just trying to get as much money, generate as much revenue as possible has become so aggressive and so catastrophic that I think it's only going to damage the brand in a irreparable state. I don't feel like Xbox has ever gone through a phase like this before. They've gone through some tough times over the years. There's no doubt about, some of the challenges that they've faced over the years. The Xbox One days were not great. Even the Xbox 360, there was definitely some challenges there as well. The OG Xbox days where they were getting the system off the ground, they were losing so much money, and it was just, a question of whether this was even worth doing. Will we even be able to compete against Sony and Nintendo? But this time around, everything just feels a little bit different. These decisions and these action items that are being made aren't coming from a place of respect. The only thing that we can do is speak with our voices, those people that have some type of influence or platform or whatever. And for those people that are customers, speak with your wallet. If you're not happy with the way Xbox is headed, then speak with your wallet. Don't be afraid to, cancel that subscription or, go a different path. I'm not suggesting that you do that. I'm just saying that as an adult, you should make your own decisions and don't necessarily be swayed by the things that you hear and read about online, but take a look at the facts in front of you and then make, your own kind of choices, because at the end of the day, I want Xbox to be successful. I want them to succeed. I want them to get back to the way things were. But as more time goes on, I slowly start to realize that it's probably not going to happen. I think we're in a much different landscape these days than we were. Xbox is no longer a rounding error on the books. It's a part of their core business model. And as such, it's being treated more like, a profit and loss revenue statement on a spreadsheet, rather than, what makes and what's made video games so impactful and so important over so many years, and that's people. The human aspect, the human element of video games, whether you're a game developer, whether you're someone that plays video games, that is the part that really just has been eroded in all this conversation, and that's really unfortunate. Look, I'll always be a fan of Xbox, and I'll always kind of admire them for all the work they've done over the years, and I continue to, but I'm just not happy with the direction they're taking. And look, we'll have to see what the future holds. I always say that, but I think the next 18 months or so will really kind of outline what Xbox looks like. If you like this episode, please don't forget to leave me a thumbs up, and we will catch you guys in the next one. Bye for now.